We're never going to get to the end of the board at this rate. Hi friends, my name is Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading, and today is the time to see what Timmy's TBR wants me to read for June. Now, June is a difficult month to plan for because I am participating in the amazing Readathon. I'm actually a co-host for Team Sci-Fi. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, it is a month-long readathon happening in June. Bree from Four Paws in a Books has made this. It's a fabulous readathon. It's one of my favorites. And we will be traveling across the world, similar to the show The Amazing Race, but with book prompts. And we don't know all the prompts ahead of time. We will find out each city as we need to arrive there, and we will find out the prompt to get to each city kind of every couple of days. So I don't really know what I'm going to need to read in June. But I do know that I will need to be reading some sci-fi since that's the team I'm on. So again, if you don't know what this is, I will link it all down below. So go check out all the details and join a team. But that is definitely something that I will be focusing on in this TBR. We'll be adding as much sci-fi as possible so that I have a lot of sci-fi options. I don't necessarily need to read sci-fi for the entire month of June, but we do get a bonus point for reading our team genre. So I definitely want to have some sci-fi options. So hopefully Timmies lets me get some sci-fi on this TBR. Fingers crossed. But before we dive into this month's round of Timmy's TBR, let's look back at last month and see how I did, because I read a lot of books last month. Did I read a lot of my TBR books? Not really. I have quite a few rollovers. If this is your first time seeing Timmy's TBR, it's my TBR game based off my love of Tim Hortons coffee. And when I put a book on Timmy's TBR, it stays on Timmy's TBR until I either DNF it or read it. So because I didn't read them, they are going to roll over into June, which in theory just gives me more options for TAR prompts. So let me grab the stack and we'll talk about what's rolling over. I did start The Shadow Rising. I did not finish it, so I need to get this done in June very, very badly. I have The Brutal Telling. I did not start this yet. Thread Needle by Carly Thomas, which is my Patreon book club book for May and June. So this also has to get done in June for sure. And even though that stack looks small, there's a couple of Kindle books I also didn't get to. I did not get to A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. And I also did not get to The Princess Trap by Talia Hibbert. So if you're counting, that's 5 books that I did not get to from last month that will be floating into June. So my TBR already has 5 books on it. So I'm really hoping the rolls are nice and we get through this board fairly quickly so this TBR is not massive. I'm a bit concerned starting with 5 books, but let's dive in. Let's look at our first roll and see what Timmy's TBR has in store for June. Roll number 1 is a doubles 2. That's a way to start Timmy's with a donut space. POC author. That's a way to start Timmy's TBR. It knew I did not listen and I did not read my TBR, so it decided to punish me on my first roll with the minimum amount that I can go around the board, and also a doubles. If I get a doubles, I have to fill the prompt twice, so that means I need to pick 2 books for this prompt, and the prompt was a donut space with POC author. So for the first book for this prompt, I'm actually going to do a mandatory read for the Accidental Book Club. Bree and I have a book club, and Bree picked the date specifically to work with TAR and TAR prompts. So you might want to join with us too. We're reading this on June 10th and June 11th, and that is An Unkindness of Ghosts by River Solomon. This book is going to be a heavy read, but I'm really excited to dive in, and it is sci-fi. So perfect. It hits so many things for me to do for Amazing Readathon. This book was definitely picked by Bree, knowing all the things that I needed to read in mind. In this book, we follow Aster, and Aster actually lives on a spaceship that is ferrying the last of humanity to basically a promised land where they can live and survive. Something clearly has happened to Earth. I don't know what that is, but that is what Aster is currently living on, is this spaceship. And this spaceship, it says right here, is organized much like the antebellum South. And Aster is a Black person, so the racism towards Aster is very, very extreme, and it's going to be very hard to read this book. It's covering very heavy topics. Aster is on the way to this new planet and is trying to figure out a way to change what is going on in this society, and potentially needs to start a civil war to do it. We'd love to have you join us for this book, so definitely keep that in mind. We will be reading it on Sprint's Bree's channel on the 10th, mine on the 11th, and like I said, I know it's going to work for whatever we're doing at Tar at the time because Bree planned it. The next book I'm going to put on my TBR is The Blood Trials. This sounds so interesting, and I've been wanting to read this series for a while, so this is the perfect time as it is a genre blend with fantasy and sci-fi. I hope that it has enough sci-fi elements for me to get my bonus for sci-fi. We'll see as I read it. A lot of times with genre blends, I'll just have to play it by ear as I read them, but it's definitely a goal to get this onto my June TBR, so I'm glad that it fits pretty early. In this book, we follow Akina, and Akina's grandfather was the commander of this world's kind of army or some sort of thing with this world. And this world has, what I can tell, some sort of blood magic happening along with a lot of technological magic as well. Well, not magic, but technology that makes the society advanced. Akina's grandfather has been murdered, and Akina is out for revenge. And the way Akina is going to get that revenge is entering some trials. These trials are very much a dangerous situation. They're a fight to the death. Most of the people who enter do not survive. And we are going to follow Akina as she enters and hopefully wins these trials. This is a duology, so I may even pick up the second book in the month of June. We'll see how it goes, but the first is officially on the TBR.
Roll number 2 is a 10. A roll-up rack.
Well, roll number 2 was much larger. We went 10 spaces around the board, thankfully, but we ended up on roll-up rack, which means this choice is completely out of my hands. So for roll-up rec, it is a jar, and every single one of my top tier patrons can put recommendations into the jar of books they want me to read. So let me grab the jar and we'll see what one of my patrons has decided to put on my June TBR. Okay, there is so many books in this jar, and I honestly have no idea what's in here anymore. I fill it up at the start of every month and I promptly forget what's in here. So I'm not gonna look. I'm gonna look around. Okay, I think I have 2. There we go. Okay, now I have 1. Who knows what's in this? We have Bonded by Thorns by Bree. This is funny. This is Bree from Four Paws in a Books. I've just talked about Bree. And the funniest part is that I really wanted to read a Beauty and the Beast retelling this month anyway, because I'm going to go see Beauty and the Beast. And this is Beauty and the Beast. So thank you, Bree, for putting this in the jar, and thank you to the universe for making that happen. And let me grab the book. It's just right behind me. So this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It is a Why Choose Beauty and the Beast retelling. And I also want to say thank you to Kelsey, because Kelsey actually gifted this to me for my birthday. So thank you, Kelsey and Bree, for helping me get a Beauty and the Beast retelling on this TBR. The tagline that really sold me, and Bree has read this and knew that I would love this, is 4 beastly princes, 1 awkward bookworm, an enchanted world of fae, magic, and danger. I've always loved fairy tales. I never imagined I'd actually be in one. Gladly putting this on the TBR. Gladly.
Roll number 3 is another doubles 2. And a coffee space. A NetGalley arc.
Well. We have another doubles 2. We are not moving around this board very quickly, but we are adding a ton of books because they're all doubles. I feel like Timmies potentially knew that June was Tar month and went, Bree likes to be chaotic. Tar is chaotic. Maybe I should be too. Like, I feel like it knew the mood for June and decided to just lean into it. Anyway, it is what it is. So we got a doubles 2 with the prompt of NetGalley arc. I have a lot of NetGalley arcs. Unfortunately, not one of them are sci-fi. So these are not going to be sci-fi picks, but these are books that I need to read, and I will probably try to slot into like sightseeing prompts throughout the month. And also, if I don't get them done in June, I'm perfectly okay to float them into July because I need to read them for videos in July anyway. So we're not too disastrous at this point. The first one of those is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. This book is the sequel to A Dowry of Blood, which I love. It's dark academia, which I love. And it's based on the classic Carmilla and is somehow, inspired or a retelling of that vampire story. I really don't know anything else about this, but it's definitely a much anticipated release for me, and I'm excited to chuck it on this TBR. For the next Galley arc I'm going to do, it's going to be The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. This is a cozy fantasy with a romance subplot, which makes me a bit nervous because I'm not 100% sure I like cozy fantasy, but I do like some witchy books, so I'm hoping this works for me. In this book, we follow Marigold, and Marigold is very in touch with the spirits and nature, and one day her grandmother takes her to her family cottage. While there, she finds out she gets the chance to potentially be the town's honey witch, and she jumps at that chance. There is one caveat to being the honey witch, and that is that no one can fall in love with the honey witch. Why? I don't know. Doesn't go in depth in the synopsis. It just says that that's the rule. Obviously, something happens. Lottie comes to town, and Lottie is a skeptic of magic. Marigold and Lottie start to spend time together and start to have a romance. This is a sapphic romance, another reason this ended up on my NetGalley list. So there's a few reasons why this is here. There are also a few reasons why I'm nervous, but I need to read this for an upcoming video. So you'll see this in a video sometime in July, but it's on the June TBR.
Rule number 4 is a 5, an iced coffee space, author who uses a pen name.
So for our next prompt, we got author who uses a pen name. Now, I wanted to make this one sci-fi, and I didn't really know of an author that uses a pen name. So I went to my Discord and said, I need help. I need help. Timmies makes me do the things, and I need help filling the things. Caitlin was very quick at telling me that James S.A. Corey is a pen name. Perfect. I've wanted to read Leviathan Wakes, so that's what we're going with. Shortly after that response, Bree comes in and says this. So it even went on this TBR a little bit faster. So for Leviathan Wakes, this is the start of a series, and it follows humanity as they try to colonize the solar system. Jim is an ice miner who is mining on Saturn with his crew when they find an abandoned ship. On this ship, they find something. It's quite the secret. They don't necessarily want this. It's going to cause them a lot of problems, and people are willing to kill for this secret. We also follow Detective Miller. Detective Miller seems to be some sort of detective, obviously, but it looks like he's working in the private sphere, and he's looking for a missing girl. The parents are very rich, very affluent, so they have the money to send him off into space to find this girl. Miller meets up with Jim and shortly finds out that potentially the girl is the key to everything that is going on and solving what is currently happening with this very large secret or mystery. That's what I'm getting from the synopsis, but I know that I will be reading this in the month of June because I've got some background information.
Rule number 5 is a 6, a donut space, Maple Dip, a book set in Canada.
So for our next prompt, I got a Maple Dip, a book set in Canada, and obviously I cannot really make that sci-fi. I'm sure there's probably somewhere, somehow, a sci-fi book set in Canada, but I have a mandatory read set in Canada that I have to read as well as part of a read-along, so I'm just gonna go with that. And that is Powerless by Elsie Silver. I'm reading this as part of the Chestnut SpringsALong, hosted by Claire from Claire's Creative Corner. It is co-hosted by myself and Leandra from Leandra the TBR Zero. We are reading one Chestnut Springs book a month, and this is our read for June. The live show will be probably the first Saturday in July. So definitely something that if you want to join us, we'd love to have you. This one is our first step away from a cowboy romance. It's cowboy adjacent, but it's not a cowboy romance. We follow a friend of the Easton brothers who is a hockey player. So this is a hockey romance, and I love hockey romances. So I'm very excited to have this book happen. We follow Jasper and Sloane. In the last book, we find out that Sloane is actually engaged. And on the back, we find out something happens at the wedding and Sloane's life kind of blows up. And who's there to save her but Jasper, our NHL player? I've had mixed feelings about Chestnut Springs. The first book I gave 3 stars. The second book I gave 5. So I'm hoping we just stick with that. And I love this one just as much.
Rule number 6 is a 3. A coffee space. Double Double, a book with 2 D's in the title.
I think I jinxed myself. This is by far going to be one of the larger Timmies TBRs I have ever had. And we are moving around this board so slowly. A 3. I guess it's better than a doubles 2, but a 3? We're never going to get to the end of the board at this rate, but that's okay. We got a coffee space with Double Double, a book with 2 D's in the title. And thankfully, I recently added a book to my TBR that fit this prompt and is sci-fi. And that is Just One Damn Thing After Another by Jodi Taylor. This book has dinosaurs on the cover. I feel like that's pretty much the reasoning for reading this. Frankly, it has dinosaurs. So this is set at St. Mary's Institute of Historical Research. And at this institute, they do obviously historical research, but not in the way that you might think. They do it through some sort of time travel where they go back to major events in history and record and get information. However, one wrong move causes a problem and history starts to fight back. What that means, I don't know. It sounds very ominous, but I'll find out this month when I read this book.
Rule number 7 is a 10 and gets me to the end of the board and a free space.
Friends, we made it. I got a 10. I got to the end of the board and my free space and mood read, as I always do, because for some reason, they never seem to fit for prompts. I'm going to put the B&K Book Club book for this month. B&K Book Club is a book club I run with my friend Kelsey over here on YouTube and on Discord. The link to join us is down below. For the month of June, we are reading my much anticipated release of The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. I'm so excited to read this book. This is a historical fantasy based after the events of the Spanish Armada. In this, we follow Luzia, who is a scullery maid at a prestigious household and uses magic to kind of keep the kitchen going. When the person who owns the house finds out that they have a magical maid, they decide to use Luzia's magic to make the household kind of move forward and do larger things to help the household. Shortly after that, the King of Spain's secretary finds out about her magic and is going to use her and her magic to get favor with the king following the defeat at the Spanish Armada. I absolutely adored Ninth House and Hellbent, and I'm really hoping and really just anticipating this so much. So I'm really excited to get this on the TBR, and it will be the last book on this TBR. Let me count them up and see what we're at. It's a large number though. So we ended up with 9 books on this round of Timmy's TBR. We have The Familiar, Powerless, Bonded by Thorns, Blood Trial, and An Unkindness of Ghosts. We also have Leviathan Wakes, The Honey Witch, Education and Malice, and Just One Damn Thing After Another. So that's 9 books on the June round, but we also have our rollovers, which include The Princess Trap and Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, as well as Threadneedle, The Brutal Telling, and The Shadow Rising. That's 14 books on June's TBR. I mean, that's a lot. Will I get through this? Probably not. That's unlikely. However, it does give me a lot of options for June and for all the city prompts. So hopefully I have so many options that I'll be able to fill the city prompts with these books. I think that's the way to look at this, as a glass is half full situation. Anyway, let me know if you're joining us for the Amazing Readathon and what team you are on down below. And also, what is one book you would really like to get to in the month of June? Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and wish me luck. And I'll see you next time. Bye, friends.